Welcome, travelers of time. It is a profound pleasure to have you here, gathering in this quiet sanctuary of history. Before we step through the veil of centuries, tell me, where in the world do you find yourself right now? And what silent hour does the clock show upon your wall? Please leave a whisper in the comments below. Reading your notes brings me a deep sense of joy, connecting our souls across the vastness of time. Now, take a deep, slow breath, inhale the calmness, and exhale the chaos. Let the heavy weight of the day slide off your shoulders like a thick wool cloak, falling softly to the floor. There is nothing you need to solve right now. There is nowhere else you need to be. Just here, drifting safely on the river of the past. Close your eyes, or simply let your gaze become soft and unfocused. Allow your muscles to uncoil, feeling loose, heavy, and deeply at peace. Let the silence of the night wrap around you like cool, soft velvet. Tonight, we travel back to a day etched eternally in stone and blood. The Ides of March. Have you ever wondered what the air truly felt like on that morning in Rome? Did the cold marble statues seem paler than usual in the dawn? Light. Could the birds sense the invisible storm gathering above the Senate House? How does a man who holds the world in his palm walk unknowingly, step by step, toward his final moment? We will watch the sand fall through the hourglass, minute by minute, breath by breath. So, let us begin our journey into the shadows of the Republic. The heavy curtains of the night begin to fray at the edges, letting in the first gray light of a doomed morning. Rome is waking up, but it is a waking filled with dread and cold sweat. The great storm, which shook the temples and tore tiles from the roof's eave, has settled into a sullen drizzle. Water drips rhythmically from the eaves, tapping out a countdown on the cobblestones below. Tap, 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 tap. It is the hour before dawn, a time when the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. Let us drift through the damp streets, avoiding the puddles that reflect the bruised purple of the sky. The city smells of wet ash, ancient mud, and the sharp tang of ozone left by the lightning. High above, the Capitoline Hill stands silent, its marble pillars glowing faintly like old bones. But our destination is the Domus Publica, the official residence of the high priest. Here, the walls are thick, built to keep out the noise of the forum. But they cannot keep out the fear. Inside the master bedroom, the air is stagnant and uncomfortably warm. A single oil lamp sits on a bronze stand, its wick burning low, struggling against the gloom. The flame flickers, casting long, nervous shadows that dance upon the frescoed walls. Watch the shadows closely. See how they stretch and twist like silent conspirators. Julius Caesar lies upon his bed, his breathing shallow and uneven. The man who conquered Gaul, who crossed the Rubicon, now lies defeated by a restless night. His body, usually so full of vigorous energy, feels heavy like lead this morning. He stares up at the ceiling, watching a small spider weave its web in the corner. The spider moves with purpose, indifferent to the fate of empires, spinning its trapped thread by thread. Beside him, Calpurnia tosses in her sleep, trapped in the labyrinth of a terrifying vision. Her hands clutch the fine linen sheets, her knuckles white with the strain of a nightmare. She murmurs softly, "Ooh," words that make no sense, yet carry the weight of prophecy. The gable, crumbling, the fountain, blood. She whispers into the pillow. Caesar turns his head, slowly, the fabric rustling against his skin like dry autumn leaves. He feels a dull ache in his head, a familiar dizziness that has plagued him for weeks. The falling sickness, they call it in whispers behind his back, a curse from Apollo. But today, the sickness feels different, deeper, woven into the very fabric of the day. He rises from the bed, sitting on the edge of the mattress, his shoulders slumped. His bare feet touch the cold, smooth marble of the floor, sending a shock through his system. A shiver runs up his spine, not from the cold, but from a sudden, inexplicable sense of finality. He rubs his face with calloused hands, hands that have held swords, scrolls, and the destiny of Rome. The lamp flame sputters and pops, startling him for a brief second. He stands up slowly, his joints protesting with a series of quiet clicks. Walking to the window, he pushes open the heavy wooden shutter just a crack. The hinge groans, a sound that echoes too loudly in the silence of the room. He peers out into the gloom, looking towards the gardens, where the rain is still falling. The wind howls softly, moving through the cypress trees like a morning chorus. There is no starlight this morning, only a suffocating blanket of gray clouds. Down in the courtyard, a guard leans against a pillar, dozing on his spear. Caesar watches him, wondering what dreams visit the minds of simple men. Do they dream of glory, or do they simply dream of a warm meal and a soft bed? He turns back to the room, feeling a sudden thirst that makes his throat dry. On a side table, a silver pitcher waits, beaded with condensation. He pours a cup of water, the liquid clear and trembling in the dim light. He drinks, feeling the cold water slide down his throat, grounding him in reality. But the reality of this day feels fragile, like a vase waiting to be shattered. Calpurnia gasps suddenly, sitting bolt upright in the bed, her eyes wide with terror. "No," she cries out, her voice piercing the quiet atmosphere. Caesar sets the cup down, the metal clinking softly against the wood. He moves to her side, sitting gently on the edge of the bed to comfort her. "Hush now," he says, his voice raspy from sleep, yet commanding. "It was only a dream, just shadows of the mind. Nothing more." Calpurnia looks at him, and in her eyes he sees a reflection of his own hidden fears. "They were murdering you." She trembles, clutching his arm with desperate strength. "In my arms, Julius. You were bleeding in my arms, ooh, and the house fell around us." He strokes her hair, feeling the dampness of sweat on her forehead. "Dreams are liars." Calpurnia, born from the storm and a heavy meal. But even as he speaks, he does not believe his own words. The air in the room seems to thicken, pressing in on them from all sides. He looks towards the door, where his toga lies draped over a chair, waiting. The purple border of the toga, the sign of his high office, looks black in this light. It looks like a shroud, waiting to wrap a body for the funeral pyre. He shakes the thought away, forcing a smile onto his tired face. "The Senate meets today," he says softly. "There are matters of state. Do not go," she begs, her voice barely a whisper. "Send Antony. Tell them you are ill. Tell them anything. Just stay." Caesar sighs, a deep, weary sound that comes from his very soul. He is tired of fighting, tired of politics, tired of the endless demands. For a moment, he considers it the luxury of staying here, safe within these walls, to close the shutters, to ignore the world, to simply be a husband and a man. But he is Caesar Osdo, and Caesar does not hide from shadows. "We shall see." "Ooh," he murmurs, "ooh," evading her plea. "The day is yet young, oh, and the omens may change with the rising sun." He stands up again, pacing the room, his mind racing. The floor feels like ice beneath his feet, numbing his skin. He walks past the small shrine of the household gods, the lares and penates. The little clay figures seem to stare at him, their painted eyes wide and unblinking. Do they know? Do the gods know what waits for him at the theater of Pompey? He stops before a polished bronze mirror, examining his reflection in the gloom. The face staring back is old, lined with the cares of the world. His hair is thinning, combing it forward to hide the baldness, a vanity of a great man. But his eyes are still sharp, burning with the same fire that conquered the world. Or are they? Is that a flicker of doubt he sees in the metal depths? Outside, a rooster crows, a ragged, lonely sound in the wet morning. It is the signal. The city is beginning to stir. The bakers are lighting their ovens, the smoke rising to join the clouds. The slaves are waking up, preparing to serve the masters of the world. And somewhere in the city, conspirators are checking their daggers. Are they sleeping? Or are they pacing their floors, just like him? Do their hands shake? Or are they steady with the resolve of murderers? Caesar turns away from the mirror, the image dissolving into shadow. He needs fresh air. He needs to feel the wind on his face. He walks back to the window, opening the shutter fully this time. A gust of wind rushes in, extinguishing the dying oil lamp. Darkness swallows the room, absolute and sudden. For a moment, he stands in the blackness, a man alone in the void. Then, slowly, his eyes adjust to the gray light of the dawn. The rain has stopped completely now, leaving behind a heavy silence. But it is not a peaceful silence. It is the silence of a breath held before a scream. He hears the sound of sandals approaching in the corridor outside. Who walks the halls at this hour? Is it a servant? A messenger? Or something else? The footsteps stop outside his door, hesitating. A soft knock echoes through the wood. Knock, knock. Caesar straightens his back, the instinct of the general taking over. Enter, he commands, his voice steady in the darkness. The door creaks open, revealing a silhouette against the torchlight of the hallway. It is a slave, holding a fresh lamp, his face pale and frightened. Damen, the slave whispers, bowing low. The augur Spirina. He sent a message. He is at the gate. Caesar narrows his eyes, remembering the warning from days ago. Beware the Ides of March. Today is the Ides, the 15th day. He feels a cold knot tighten in his stomach. Tell him to wait. Caesar says, I will dress. The slave nods and retreats, closing the door, leaving Caesar alone once more. He looks at his toga again, the purple stripe glowing faintly. The stage is set. The actors are taking their places, and the curtain is about to rise. On the final act of the Republic, he takes a deep breath, inhaling the scent of damp wool and destiny. He reaches for his tunic, his fingers brushing the fabric. The day has begun. Caesar stands in the center of the room, allowing the slave to drape the heavy toga over his shoulder. The wool is of the finest quality, white as the driven snow, save for the broad purple stripe. It settles upon him like a second skin, a garment he has worn for decades of service. He adjusts the folds with a practiced hand, ensuring the drape is dignified and commanding. Every pleat must be perfect, for he is not just a man. He is the symbol of Rome itself. He walks out of the bedroom, leaving the shadows of the night behind him. The atrium is bright, with the light of many lamps, and the gray daylight spilling from the compluvium above. The air here is cooler, smelling of polished beeswax and fresh rain. Slaves scurry back and forth, like ants preparing for a storm, eyes downcast as he passes. He hears the sound of voices near the main entrance, a familiar laugh that echoes off the stone walls. It is Decimus Brutus, his distant cousin. a man he trusts implicitly. Decimus stands by a pillar, shaking the rainwater from his cloak, a smile fixed upon his face. He sees Caesar and straightens, spreading his arms in a gesture of warm welcome.
Ave, Caesar!
He calls out, his voice hearty and full of morning vigor. The Senate waits, and the city holds its breath for your arrival. Caesar smiles faintly, a genuine warmth entering his tired eyes. Here is a friend, a comrade in arms, someone who understands the burden of command. Decimus, Caesar replies, clasping the younger man's form. You are early, or perhaps I am late. Calpurnia enters the atrium behind him, her face still pale, her eyes red from weeping. She sees Decimus and stops, a flash of instinctive distrust crossing her features. He must not go, she says, her voice trembling but firm. Decimus, tell him to dismiss the Senate for today. Decimus looks from the weeping wife to the hesitant dictator. He knows that this is the moment, the fulcrum upon which history balances. If Caesar stays, the conspiracy fails, and they are all dead men. He steps closer to Caesar, lowering his voice to a confidential murmur. Caesar, he begins, his tone reasonable, almost teasing. Would you have me tell the graybeards that Julius Caesar cannot come because his wife had a bad dream? He lets the words hang in the air, stinging Caesar's pride like a subtle poison. They have prepared honors for you today. Rumors say they wish to offer you the title of king of all provinces. Caesar's eyes flicker at the word king, a dangerous ambition that he pretends to ignore. Shall we tell them to come back another day, when Calpurnia has better dreams? Decimus chuckles softly, a sound that implies the absurdity of such a thing. Caesar looks at Calpurnia, seeing her fear you, but also seeing the logic in Decimus's words. To be ruled by fear, to be ruled by omens, is not the way of a Roman. It is certainly not the way of Caesar. He gently pulls his arm away from Calpurnia's grasp. My dear, he says softly, fear is a small thing, and Rome is a great one. I cannot hide in my house like a frightened child. Calpurnia steps back, defeat slumping her shoulders, her vision of blood returning. She knows, with a woman's intuition, that she has lost him. Then go, she whispers, turning her face away to hide a fresh tear. But remember my words when the iron bites. Caesar feels a pang of guilt, but pushes it aside, stepping towards the great doors. Come, Decimus, he says, his voice regaining its strength. Let us not keep destiny waiting. They walk out into the portico together, side by side, the betrayer and the betrayed. Outside, the morning is gray and sullen, the sun struggling to pierce the clouds. A crowd has already gathered near the gates, waiting for a glimpse of the dictator. They cheer as he appears, Caesar? Caesar! A roar that vibrates in the chest. But the cheer sounds ragged in the damp air, lacking its usual joy. Caesar raises a hand in acknowledgement, practicing the aloof benevolence of a god. Waiters bring forward his litter, an opulent chair with crimson curtains and ivory inlays. But before he enters, he pauses, looking towards the small altar in the courtyard. The augur Spurena stands there, his hands stained with the blood of a morning sacrifice. The old priest looks up, his face grave, his eyes filled with a terrifying knowledge. Caesar approaches him, stepping over a puddle of rainwater mixed with mud. "Well, Spurena?" Caesar says, a mocking smile playing on his lips. The Ides of March have come. It is a challenge, a dismissal of the old man's warning. Spurena does not blink. Ooh, he does not look away. "Eh, Caesar?" The priest replies, his voice low and raspy like dry leaves. But they have not yet gone. The words strike Caesar, a chill wind blowing through his soul. He looks down at the altar, where the entrails of a sacrificial bull are spread out. What do the signs say? Caesar asks, his tone suddenly serious. Spurena points a trembling finger at the bloody mess. "There is no heart," the priest whispers. "The beast had no heart." Caesar, it is an omen of death, clear and undeniable. Caesar stares at the visceral sight for a moment, seeing his own mortality. A beast without a heart. How can it live? How can a state live without its head? Decimus steps in quickly, sensing Caesar's hesitation. A biological curiosity. Nothing more, all. Decimus says dismissively, "Or perhaps the heart shriveled in fear of your greatness." Caesar. He laughs, urging Caesar towards the litter. The Senate is waiting, and the delays are an insult to them. Caesar shakes his head, breaking the spell of the omen. "You are right," he mutters. What proceed? He climbs into the litter, sinking into the soft cushions. The curtains are left open, allowing him to see the city he rules. The bearers lift the poles, grunting under the weight. The procession begins to move, winding its way out of the Domus Publica. They turn onto the Via Sacra, the sacred way, the heart of Rome. The wheels of carts rattle on the stones. Merchants are shouting their wares. "Hot sausages! Fresh bread! Wine from Falernum!" Life goes on, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the litter. People press close, trying to touch the hem of his robe, trying to hand him petitions. Scraps of parchment are thrust at him. Pleas for land, for justice, for money. He takes them mechanically, passing them to a secretary who walks beside the litter. One scroll is thrust forward with desperate urgency. A Greek teacher named Artemidorus pushes through the guards. "Read this." "Caesar!" he shouts, his eyes wide and wild. "Read this alone, and read it instantly. It concerns you deeply. Caesar takes the scroll, feeling the rough texture of the papyrus. He tries to unroll it, to glance at the words written in hurried Greek. But another petitioner grabs his hand, kissing his ring, distracting him. Justice. Caesar! Oh, my neighbor has stolen my pigs. Caesar sighs, lowering the scroll, keeping it rolled in his left hand. I will hear you later, he says to the man. The scroll from Artemidorus remains unread, clutched in his fingers. The list of the conspirators, the details of the plot, right there in his hand. Fate is cruel, dangling salvation so close, yet just out of reach. The litter sways rhythmically, lulling him into a false sense of security. He looks at the buildings passing by, the temples he has restored, the basilicas he has built. This is his city, his Rome. He feels a surge of pride, drowning out the fear. Who would dare strike him here? Amidst his people, he sees the statues of the gods watching him from the rooftops. Jupiter, Mars, Venus, his divine ancestor. They have protected him in 100 battles. They have saved him from storms, from pirates, from Gallic spears. Why would they abandon him now? The procession moves slower now, the crowds getting thicker as they approach the forum. The noise is deafening, a cacophony of Latin, Greek, and a dozen other tongues. The smell of the city is intense, unwashed bodies, frying garlic, horse manure. It is the smell of life, and Caesar breathes it in deeply. He sees Mark Antony in the distance, strong, broad-shouldered, loyal Antony. Antony is pushing through the crowd, coming to join him. Caesar relaxes slightly, feeling safer with his right-hand man nearby. But then, a group of senators intercepts Antony. Trebonius, one of the conspirators, pulls Antony aside, engaging him in conversation. It looks innocent enough, just a political discussion. But it is a calculated move, stripping Caesar of his protector. Caesar frowns, wondering why Antony has stopped. But the litter keeps moving, carrying him away from help, carrying him towards the end. They are approaching the theater of Pompey now, where the Senate is meeting. The great stone structure looms ahead, massive and imposing. It was built by his rival, the man he defeated, Pompey the Great. Irony is etched into the very stones of the building. The sun tries to break through the clouds again, casting a pale, watery light on the stairs. The senators are waiting outside, a sea of white togas and purple stripes. They stop talking as the litter approaches, a hush falling over the group. Hundreds of eyes turn towards him. Some are filled with admiration, some with fear, and some with cold, hard hate. Caesar signals for the bearers to stop. He prepares to descend, to step onto the stage. He adjusts his toga one last time. He assumes the mask of the ruler. He is ready. Caesar steps down from the litter, his sandals making a sharp sound on the stone pavement. He adjusts the folds of his toga again, a nervous habit he has never quite conquered. Behind him, the noise of the bustling city seems to fade away, cut off by invisible walls. He is entering a different world. Now, a world of marble, echoes, and whispered secrets. He begins to climb the steps to the portico, his movement slow and deliberate. Each step is a victory. Each step is a defiance of the omens. The senators who were waiting outside part, like the Red Sea, creating a path for him. They bow their heads as he passes, a ripple of white wool and false humility. Some of them catch his eye, smiling with lips that do not reach their eyes. Caesar nods to them, recognizing faces he has known for years. There is Cassius, lean and hungry, looking his eyes darting nervously. There is Casca, sweating profusely despite the cool morning air. And there is Brutus, Marcus Brutus, the son of his mistress, the man he loves like a son. Brutus does not look at him. His gaze is fixed on the ground, his jaw set tight. Does Caesar sense the betrayal radiating from him? Or does he only see a young man burdened by the weight of his ancestors? Caesar reaches the top of the stairs and pauses at the threshold of the curia. The great hall stretches out before him, vast and shadowy. Dust motes dance in the shafts of light that pierce the high windows. The air inside is stale, smelling of old parchment, burning incense, and fear. He steps across the threshold, and the mood in the room shifts instantly. The hundreds of senators who are already seated rise as one mass. The sound of their movement is like a sudden gust of wind in a dry forest. Rustle, snap, hush. They stand in silence, watching him, waiting for him to take his place. Caesar walks down the center aisle, the floor echoing his solitary footsteps. He walks past the rows of wooden benches, past the statues of ancient heroes. He feels the weight of their stares on his back, 1,000 invisible daggers. At the far end of the hall stands a massive statue, looming over the proceedings. It is Pompey the Great, his dead rival. The marble eyes of the statue seem to mock him, staring down with eternal judgment. Caesar suppresses a shudder, refusing to let the ghost of Pompey see his fear. He reaches the dais, the raised platform where his golden chair awaits. The chair is a throne, in all but name, a symbol of his absolute power. He turns and sits, the wood groaning slightly under his weight. He arranges his robes, ensuring his legs are covered with dignity. He looks out at the sea of faces, the men who rule the world under his command. "You may sit," he says, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. The senators sit down, a wave of white fabric settling onto the benches. But not all of them sit. A group of men begins to move towards him. Slowly, casually. They are the conspirators who, closing the net they have woven for months, they approach the days under the guise of presenting petitions. They hold scrolls in their hands, but their hands are hidden within their togas. Julius Caesar takes the lead, his face a mask of desperate pleading. Caesar, Caesar begins, his voice trembling slightly. I beg you, reconsider the banishment of my brother. Caesar sighs, a flash of irritation crossing his face. Not now, Caesar, he says sternly, waving a hand of dismissal. The Senate has matters of state to discuss first. But Caesar does not retreat. He steps closer, invading the dictator's personal space. Please, Caesar? He insists. Just one word of mercy. The other conspirators crowd around, pressing in tight against the chair. They are too close, much too close for comfort. Caesar feels a sudden claustrophobia, the air seemingly sucked out of the space around him. He smells their breath, sour with wine and anxiety. He sees the sweat beading on their foreheads, the dilation of their pupils. What is this violence? Caesar demands ooh, his voice rising in anger. He tries to stand, to assert his authority, to push them back, but they do not move. They are a wall of bodies, a cage of flesh and wool. Caesar reaches out with both hands, grabbing the shoulders of Caesar's toga. It is an unthinkable act to touch the person of the dictator. Why do you wait? Caesar shouts, his voice cracking. He pulls the toga down violently, stripping it from Caesar's neck. This is the signal. The fabric tears with a loud rip, shocking in the silence. Caesar's shoulder is exposed, all vulnerable and pale. Villain, Caesar cries out, grabbing Caesar's hands. This is violence against Caesar, but the time for words has passed. Behind him, Casca draws his dagger, the metal gleaming dully in the light. The blade is short, sharp, and hungry for blood. Time seems to freeze, stretching this single second into an eternity. Caesar sees the glint of the steel from the corner of his eye. He sees the face of Casca, twisted into a rictus of terror and rage. He realizes, finally, completely, what is happening. The omens were true. The dream was true. The Ides have come. His heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. His mind races, searching for a weapon, a guard, an escape. But he has only his stylus, a sharp bronze writing tool. He is alone, surrounded by wolves in sheep's clothing. The first blow is falling. The air hisses as the blade cuts through it. The silence of the Senate is about to be shattered forever. Caesar braces himself. He does not cower. He is Caesar. The blade descends, a flash of silver lightning in the dim hall. It strikes not the heart, but the shoulder, grazing the neck. A sharp, cold sting followed by a sudden rush of warmth. Blood bright and crimson blooms instantly on the white toga. It is the first drop of a deluge that will drown the Republic. Caesar does not fall. Not yet. The old soldier within him wakes up, roaring with adrenaline. He spins around his eyes wide with shock and fury. He catches Casca's arm, his fingers digging into the assassin's wrist. The strength of the conqueror is still there, forged in the fires of Gaul. Casca, you villain! Caesar bellows, his voice thundering. What are you doing? Casca is terrified, his eyes bulging, struggling against Caesar's grip. He did not expect the lion to fight back. He drops the dagger, or perhaps it is wrenched from his hand. Help, brother! Casca screams in Greek. Help me! The cry breaks the paralysis of the other conspirators. They surge forward, a wave of panic and violence. It is no longer a ceremony, it is a butchery. Cassius steps in his face twisted with a grim determination. He strikes a blow to Caesar's face, cutting deep. Caesar reels back, blinded by his own blood. He tries to defend himself, stabbing wildly with his metal stylus. He pierces the arm of one attacker, a small victory in a losing war. But there are too many of them, far too many. They surround him like a pack of wolves bringing down a stag. The air is filled with the sounds of struggle, grunts, gasps, and tearing cloth. The golden chair is overturned, crashing loudly onto the marble floor. Scrolls scatter everywhere, trampled under sandals stained with red. The rest of the Senate watches in frozen horror. Hundreds of men, powerful men, standing like statues of stone. They do not move to help they do not scream, they only watch. Cicero stands pale and trembling, his eyes fixed on the chaotic knot of bodies. Is this the liberty they promised? Or is this merely murder? Caesar is pushed back, stumbling against the steps of the days. He is a whirlwind of motion, twisting, turning, dodging. He is looking for an escape, looking for a friend. Antony! He tries to shout, but the name dies in his throat. Antony is not here. Antony is held at the door, oblivious. Another blade finds its mark, striking him in the side. The pain is blinding, a white, hot lance of agony. Caesar gasps, the air leaving his lungs in a rush. He sees the faces of men he pardoned, men he raised up. Decimus, who laughed with him just moments ago, now holds a dagger. Trebonius, whom he trusted with armies, now blocks his path. The betrayal cuts deeper than any steel. The physical pain is nothing compared to the anguish of the soul. He is alone, utterly and completely alone. The room spins, the faces blurring into a kaleidoscope of hate. The dust motes in the air are now dancing with droplets of blood. The smell of iron is overwhelming, choking him. He tries to push past them, to reach the open floor, but they are a wall of knives, impenetrable and cruel. Minucius Basilus strikes at him, but misses, wounding his own comrade instead. Rubrius Ruga grabs Caesar's toga, pulling him down. They are clumsy in their haste, hurting each other in their frenzy to kill him. It is a messy, ugly business, void of any honor. Caesar fights on, swinging his arms, kicking out. He is fighting not just for his life, but for his dignity. He refuses to die like a beast in a pit. He is the descendant of Venus, the Pontifex Maximus. But the gods are silent today. There is no thunderbolt from Jupiter to strike down the traitors. There is only the wet sound of blades entering flesh. Thud. Slash. Thud. His vision begins to tunnel, the edges turning gray. His breath comes in ragged, wet gasps. He feels his strength draining away, flowing out onto the cold stone. His legs feel heavy, as if he is wading through deep mud. He stumbles again, falling to one knee. The conspirators cheer, a ragged, guttural sound. They sense the end is near. They close in tighter, their daggers raised high. The light from the high windows seems to dim, fading away. The shadows of the room stretch out, reaching for him. He looks up, searching for one sympathetic face, but he sees only the cold marble eyes of Pompey's statue. Pompey is watching, his stone face impassive. Is he smiling? Is this his revenge from beyond the grave? To see his conqueror bleed at his feet, Caesar forces himself to stand one last time. It is a monumental effort of will. He will not die on his knees. He shakes off a hand that grabs his shoulder. He punches an attacker in the face, breaking his nose. For a brief second, the circle widens. He stands panting, blood dripping from his chin, from his hands. He looks like a ruin, a magnificent temple crumbling in an earthquake. His toga is in tatters, hanging in bloody rags. He is no longer the dictator. He is just a man, a mortal man facing his mortality. But then, the circle closes again. They rush him all at once, a frenzy of stabbing metal. He feels a blow to his back, between the shoulder blades, another to his thigh, hamstringing him. He can no longer stand. He begins to sink, slowly, inevitably, and in the chaos of faces, amidst the flashing blades, he sees him. Marcus Brutus, the man he loved above all others, the son of his heart. Brutus stands slightly apart, his face pale as death. He holds a dagger, but it is clean. He has not struck yet. He is staring at Caesar with eyes full of tears and terror. Caesar stops fighting. His arms lower. His defense crumbles. The realization hits him with the force of a battering ram. Not Brutus. Anyone but Brutus. The physical pain vanishes, replaced by a heartbreak so total it shatters his world. He looks at Brutus, his eyes locking with the younger man's. The noise of the assassination seems to fade into a dull roar. There is only silence between them, a silence heavy with unsaid words, with betrayed love. Brutus steps forward, his hand trembling. The other conspirators make way for him. They want him to strike. They need him to strike, to bind them all together in this blood pact. Caesar waits. He does not plead. He does not beg. He simply watches you and waits for the final blow to fall. Brutus lunges forward, his movement stiff and mechanical. The dagger strikes Caesar in the groin, a low, shameful blow. It is not a fatal wound in itself, but it is the blow that ends the struggle. Caesar looks at the blood blossoming on his tunic, mixed with the blood of others. He looks back at Brutus, his eyes searching for a reason, for an apology. But there is nothing there, only the cold emptiness of a fanatic. You too, child, Caesar whispers in Greek. Kai su tenon. The words are barely audible, lost in the heavy air of the Senate. They are not a question, but a final resignation. The bond is severed. The father is slain by the son. Caesar knows there is nothing left to fight for. The world he built has turned against him. He lets go of Casca's arm. He lets go of the struggle. With his last ounce of strength, he does not strike back. Instead, he reaches for his toga, pulling the fabric up. He covers his face, hiding his agony from the eyes of his murderers. He will not let them see him die. He will not let them see the fear in his eyes. With his other hand, he smooths the folds of the toga over his legs. Even in death, he seeks to preserve his dignity. He wants to fall decently, like a true Roman. The conspirators strike again and again, a frenzy of senseless violence. 23 wounds tearing into his flesh. But Caesar makes no sound, no scream, no groan, only a sharp intake of breath. He begins to fall, slowly, like a great oak tree cut down by axes. Gravity claims him, pulling him down towards the cold marble. He collapses at the base of the statue of Pompey. The irony is complete. The blood of Caesar splashes onto the feet of his old enemy. Pompey stands above him, silent and victorious at last. The body twitches once, twice, and then is still. The great heart, which pumped ambition into the veins of Rome, stops beating. The silence that follows is deafening. It is heavier than the noise of the murder. The conspirators stand panting, their chests heaving, their hands red. They look at each other, wild-eyed, expecting applause. Liberty! One of them shouts, his voice cracking. Tyranny is dead! Screams another. But there is no applause. There is only the sound of sandals slapping on stone. The rest of the Senate is fleeing. Panic spreads like wildfire through the hall. Hundreds of senators rush towards the doors, pushing and shoving. They are terrified, wondering if they are next. "Fly!" someone cries. "Fly for your lives?" Chairs are overturned in the stampede. Robes are torn. Dignity is forgotten. Within moments, the great hall is empty. Only the dead man and his murderers remain. The dust begins to settle, drifting down onto the bloody floor. The conspirators look around, realized they are alone. The adrenaline begins to fade, replaced by a creeping coldness. They are not heroes surrounded by adoring crowds. They are butchers standing in a slaughterhouse. Brutus looks down at his hands, stained crimson to the wrists. He tries to wipe them on his toga, but the stain only spreads. "We must go to the forum," Cassius says urgently. "We must tell the people what we have done. We must show them the blood of the tyrant." They dip their hands in Caesar's blood. A gruesome ritual. They smear it on their swords, raising them high. "Peace, freedom, and liberty," they chant, trying to believe it. They march out of the Senate House, leaving the body behind. Caesar lies alone in the shadows, the man who commanded legions, who ruled millions, now lies abandoned on a dirty floor. His face is still covered by the toga, a purple shroud for a king without a crown. The blood pools around him, dark and thick, reflecting the dust. It seeps into the cracks of the marble, staining the stone forever. Outside, the sky has turned a bruised purple. The sun hides its face, refusing to shine on this deed. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, a mournful sound. 3 slaves peer timidly around the corner of the entrance. They are Caesar's personal servants, faithful to the end. They see the ruin of their master. They creep forward, trembling, stepping over the overturned chairs. They approach the body with reverence, as if approaching a sleeping god. One of them reaches out, gently touching the blood-soaked toga. He begins to weep, a soft, broken sound. "Damen," he whispers. But the master of Rome does not answer. They cannot lift him. He is too heavy with death. They wait, keeping a vigil in the empty hall, watching the shadows lengthen across the floor. The spirit of Caesar has fled, but his ghost has just been born, and it will haunt these men and this city until the end of time. The republic they thought they saved lies dead beside him. The age of emperors has begun in a pool of blood. The air grows cold in the curia. The smell of death is metallic and sharp. It clings to the curtains, to the wood, to the stone. Far away, the roar of the crowd begins to rise. Confused, frightened, angry. Rumors fly through the streets like black birds. Caesar is dead. The Senate is attacked. The city is burning. No one knows the truth yet. Only the silent statue of Pompey knows, and he keeps his counsel. The first act is over. The tragedy has only just begun. The news travels faster than the wind, lighter than air but heavier than lead. It slips through the cracks of the Senate doors, leaks into the porticos. It whispers in the dark alleys and screams in the crowded markets.
Caesar is dead.
The words hang in the air, impossible, terrifying, electric. At first, there is disbelief, a collective holding of breath. How can the sun still shine? How can the Tiber still flow? But then, the panic sets in, raw and primal. Shopkeepers slam their wooden shutters closed. Oh, the sound echoing like gunshots across the city. Bankers in the forum grab their coins, oh, sweeping gold into leather pouches with trembling hands. Mothers snatch their children from the streets, pulling them into the safety of dark doorways. Go inside, they hiss. The wolves are loose today. The city of Rome, usually a beast of noise and fury, begins to curl in on itself. Doors are bolted, windows are barred. The streets, once teeming with life, become rivers of fear. Men run without knowing where they are going, driven only by the instinct to hide. In his house near the Forum, Mark Antony hears the distant roar. He is a soldier. He knows the sound of a battle lost. A slave bursts into the room, breathless, face ashen.
Damen!
They have killed him. They have killed Caesar. Antony freezes a goblet of wine halfway to his lips. The wine spills, a red stain spreading on the table, mirroring the scene in the Senate. His first thought is of revenge. Hot and bloody, he reaches for his sword, the steel singing as it leaves the scabbard. But then, the cold water of reality douses his rage. If they killed the lion, they will surely hunt the lion's shadow. He is next. He knows it with the certainty of a veteran. He drops the sword, the metal clattering on the floor. Disguise yourself? He orders his slaves, stripping off his senatorial tunic. He puts on the rough wool of a servant, hiding his broad shoulders. He slips out the back door, moving through the shadows like a thief in his own city. He does not go to the Senate. He goes to ground. He barricades himself in a safe house, planning, waiting, listening, planning. Meanwhile, the conspirators are marching. They have left the silence of the curia for the noise of the streets. They walk in a phalanx, swords drawn, togas bloodied. They carry a Phrygian cap on a spear, the ancient symbol of freedom from slavery. Liberty! Brutus shouts, his voice straining against the rising murmur of the crowd. We have restored the Republic, cries Cassius, his eyes scanning the rooftops for archers. They expect cheers. They expect flowers to be thrown at their feet. They expect to be hailed as the saviors of Rome. But the streets answer them with a strange, Heavy silence. The people of Rome stand in the doorways, watching, judging. They see the blood on the hands of the liberators. They do not see heroes, they see murderers. A gladiator might kill for sport, but a senator kills for power. The crowd parts for them, not out of respect, but out of fear. No one cheers. No one claps. The silence is more cutting than any insult. It is the silence of a people who have lost their father. Brutus feels the chill of it, settling deep in his bones. This was not in the plan. Where is the joy? Where is the gratitude? They make their way to the Capitoline Hill, seeking the high ground. They lock themselves in the temple of Jupiter, guarded by their own gladiators. The liberators have become prisoners in their own victory. The sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows. The light turns a sickly yellow, bathing the city in a jaundiced glow. Far away, across the river, in the Domus Publica, Calpurnia sits by the window, her hands folded in her lap. She has not moved for hours. She has not spoken. But she knows. The air in the house has changed. The household gods have turned their faces away. She hears the wailing start in the servants' quarters. A low, mournful sound that rises like smoke. It is the sound of a world ending. She does not weep, not yet. She is the daughter of a noble house, the wife of Caesar. She waits for the confirmation, for the body to be returned. But the body does not come. Not yet. Caesar still lies on the cold stone of the Senate floor. The shadows in the Curia have grown long and deep. The blood has dried, turning from crimson to a dull rust. Flies begin to gather, buzzing in the stillness. It is a stark, lonely image of fallen greatness. Back in the streets, the initial panic begins to turn into something else. Anger. The plebeians, the common people who loved Caesar, are gathering. They whisper in the taverns, "He gave us bread. He gave us land. He made us masters of the world." And they killed him like a dog. The name of Brutus is whispered, not with reverence, but with venom. Torches are being lit as the twilight deepens. The flickering flames reflect in the eyes of angry men. The mob is a sleeping giant, and it is beginning to stir. Lepidus, Caesar's master of the horse, is rallying his troops. He occupies the forum with a legion, the metallic tramp of boots on stone restoring some order. But it is a fragile order. Rome is a powder keg, and the fuse has been lit. Night falls over the eternal city. But there will be no sleep tonight. Every lock is checked. Every weapon is sharpened. In the temple of Jupiter, the conspirators debate. "We must speak to the people again tomorrow," says Brutus. "We must explain our reasons. Reasons matter little to a hungry mob," mutters Cassius gloomily. He looks out over the darkening city, seeing the fires burning. He wonders if they have saved the Republic or set it ablaze. The wind picks up howling through the 7 hills. It sounds like the ghosts of the past, weeping for the future. Somewhere in the dark, a woman screams. Is it grief? Is it terror? It doesn't matter. Tonight, all of Rome screams silently. The Ides of March are not yet over. The longest night of the year has just begun. The torches of the 3 slaves flicker weakly in the vast darkness of the Curia. They cast dancing shadows against the walls, shadows that look like mourning ghosts. The silence here is heavy, pressing down on their chests like physical weight. They move closer to the base of Pompey's statue, their sandals shuffling on the grit. There lies the master of the world, reduced to a bundle of bloodied fabric. He seems smaller now in death, shrunken by the departure of his great spirit. The slaves are trembling, not just from fear, but from a profound grief. They are not senators. They are not politicians. They are family. They kneel beside him, ignoring the pool of dark blood that soaks their knees. One of them, an old man who has served Caesar since Gaul, reaches out a hand. He gently closes the staring eyes of the dictator. Sleep now, Damen, he whispers, his voice cracking with emotion. The wars are over. The fighting is done. They cannot leave him here, on the cold stone floor, alone in the dark. They have no stretcher, no carriage, no pomp for this final procession. They have only their arms, and their backs. They prepare to lift him, a task that feels like lifting the sky itself. 2 of them move to his shoulders, gripping the torn toga. The 3rd takes his feet, the leather sandals still laced tight. Ready? The old slave murmurs. They heave upwards, groaning under the dead weight. Caesar rises from the floor, limp and heavy. One of his arms slips free from the toga, hanging down lifelessly. The hand that held the scepter now brushes the dust of the floor. They adjust their grip, steadying themselves against the burden. Slowly, painfully, they begin the long walk towards the exit. Their footsteps echo hollowly, a sad rhythm in the empty hall. They pass the rows of empty benches where the murderers sat just hours ago. They step out into the night air, which bites with a sudden chill. The city outside is not sleeping. It is holding its breath. The moon is hidden behind thick clouds, as if refusing to witness this sight. They stick to the shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfares. They do not want to be seen. They do not want to be stopped. This is a private pilgrimage, a sacred duty. The journey is difficult. The cobblestones are slippery with dampness. Their muscles burn. Their breath comes in ragged gasps. But they do not stop. They do not rest. They carry him past the temple of Saturn, where the treasury lies locked and barred. They carry him past the rostra, where he once spoke to adoring crowds. The forum is a landscape of ominous shapes and flickering fires. In the distance, they hear the shouts of the mob, angry and confused. But here, in their small circle of light, there is only the sound of breathing. Every step is a struggle, a battle against gravity and sorrow. The blood from Caesar's wounds drips slowly onto the stones, marking their path. A trail of red tears left upon the heart of the city he loved. A stray dog approaches them, sniffing at the air, then slinks away whining. Even the beasts seem to respect the tragedy of this night. They pause for a moment near the Regia to adjust their grip. The old slave wipes sweat from his brow, mixing it with the tears on his face. "We are almost there," he whispers to the body. "Almost home." "Caesar." They resume their march, passing the temple of Vesta. The sacred fire burns within, tended by the Vestal virgins. Did the fire flicker when he died? Did the smoke turn black? They finally reach the gates of the Domus Publica. The house is dark, silent, waiting. The guard at the gate sees them approaching and drops his spear in shock. He rushes to open the heavy doors, his face pale in the torchlight. "Is it?" he asks, unable to finish the sentence. The slaves do not answer. They simply walk past him into the courtyard. The sound of their arrival wakes the household. Lights begin to appear in the windows. "Oh?" Moving hurriedly, servants pour out into the atrium, gasping, covering their mouths. A wail rises up, a high, piercing sound of female mourning. It starts low but grows louder, filling the space with raw anguish. But the slaves do not stop until they reach the inner sanctum. They lower the body gently onto a bed covered with purple cloth. They arrange his limbs, trying to give him some semblance of peace. They pull the toga up to cover the worst of the wounds. And then the crowd parts. Calpurnia enters the room. She is not screaming, "Oh!" She is not wailing. She walks with a terrible, rigid slowness. Her face is a mask of stone, her eyes dark voids. She approaches the bed, looking down at the ruin of her husband. She sees the blood, the pale skin, the stillness. The nightmare has become flesh. She reaches out a trembling hand, touching his cold cheek. "Julius," she breathes, a word that carries a lifetime of love. She does not look at the slaves. She does not look at the weeping servants. Her world has shrunk to this single, devastating point. She remembers his words from that morning. Fear is a small thing. Now, the fear is gone, replaced by a grief so vast it has no name. She traces the line of his jaw, the scar on his forehead. She pulls the toga down slightly, seeing the gash in his neck. A sob breaks from her throat, a sound like glass shattering. Then another, and another, until her whole body shakes with it. She falls upon his chest, burying her face in the bloodied wool. She screams then, a primal scream that tears through the house. It is a scream that demands an answer from the gods. Why? Why him? Why now? The servants fall to their knees, weeping with her. The sound of their collective grief rises up through the roof. It drifts out into the city, joining the wind. Outside, the first drops of rain begin to fall again, as if the heavens themselves are finally weeping for Caesar. In the corner of the room, a physician stands helpless. Antistius is his name, a man of science. He approaches the body, not to heal, but to document. He must examine the wounds. He must record the crime. He waits for Calpurnia to be led away, gently, by her women. She resists at first, clinging to the body like a drowning woman to a raft. "Do not take him!" she cries. "He is mine." He is safe now, but eventually her strength fails her. She allows herself to be guided away, her eyes never leaving his face. Antistius moves closer, bringing a lamp. He begins to count the wounds, one by one. 1 in the shoulder, 2 in the chest, 3 in the side. He counts 23 wounds in total. 23 daggers that bit into the flesh of the dictator. He shakes his head sadly, noting his findings on a wax tablet. Only one was fatal, he mutters to himself. The second blow, to the chest. All the others were merely cruelty. He covers the body again, pulling the sheet up to the chin. Caesar lies in state now, in the heart of his home. The candles burn low around him, casting long flickers. The house settles into a rhythmic, sobbing silence. But outside the walls, the storm is building. The people have heard the rumors. Tomorrow, they will see the body. Tomorrow, Mark Antony will speak. And tomorrow, the fire that consumes Caesar's body will consume the entire city. But for now, there is only the quiet dignity of death, the peace that comes after the end of the world. The sun rises heavily over Rome, struggling to pierce the gray shroud of the morning. It is a new day, but it feels old, worn out by the tragedy of the night before. The city wakes up with a hangover of fear, uncertain of who rules and who obeys. The Senate meets again, not in the Curia, but in the temple of Tellus. They are frightened men, debating amnesty, debating peace, debating survival. Cicero speaks of compromise, trying to glue the shattered republic back together. But outside the temple walls, the real power is shifting. The people are gathering in the forum, a restless, murmuring ocean. They are waiting for a sign, waiting for a voice. And the voice comes not from the living, but from the dead, from the house of the Vestal Virgins. A small procession emerges. The sacred sisters, dressed in white, walk with solemn grace. They carry a scroll sealed with the personal ring of Julius Caesar. It is his last will and testament, entrusted to their holy care. They move through the crowd, and the people part for them like the Red Sea. There is a reverence here, a silence that commands respect. They arrive at the house of Mark Antony, handing him the scroll. Antony takes it, his hands feeling the weight of the parchment. He knows that this scroll is a weapon sharper than any dagger. He breaks the seal, the wax cracking with a dry snap. He begins to read, his eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. A slow smile spreads across his face, a smile of sorrow mixed with triumph. He steps out onto the balcony, overlooking the gathered throng. "People of Rome," he calls out, his voice deep and resonant. "Hear the words of your father!" The crowd falls silent, straining to hear every syllable. Antony reads slowly, letting each bequest sink in. "To my grandnephew Octavius, I leave my name and the bulk of my fortune." A murmur runs through the crowd. "Old Octavius, the young boy." But Antony continues, his voice rising. "But to the people of Rome, to every single citizen," he pauses for effect, looking into the eyes of the poor, the hungry. "I leave 75 drachmas to every man." A gasp ripples through the square, a sound of pure disbelief. 75 drachmas. It is a fortune to a laborer. It is bread for a year old. It is rent. It is life. And that is not all. Antony shouts, silencing the rising cheer. He leaves you his private gardens across the Tiber, his orchards, his arbors, his walkways. Leaves them to you and to your children forever. As a public park, a place of rest and recreation, the silence breaks, shattered by a collective sob. Men who stood stoic with anger now weep openly. He gave them his money. He gave them his land. He thought of them even as he conquered the world. He was not a tyrant. He was a benefactor. He was a father. And they killed him. The mood in the forum shifts instantly, like the wind before a hurricane. The grief hardens into something darker, something hotter. They murdered him. A woman screams, tearing her hair. "They killed our father!" A man shouts, clenching his fists. The names of Brutus and Cassius are no longer whispered with fear. They are spat out with venom. "Where are the murderers?" The cry goes up. "Burn their houses!" Tear them apart. Antony watches the transformation, satisfied. He has lit the fire without setting a single torch. He rolls up the scroll, protecting it like a sacred relic. Patience. He soothes them, though his eyes burn with intent. Tomorrow is the funeral. Tomorrow we shall honor him as he deserves. Bring your grief, bring your love, and bring your anger. The crowd begins to disperse, but they do not go home to hide. They go to gather wood, They tear down benches, stalls, fences. They are building a pyre, not a neat, orderly pyre sanctioned by the priests, but a wild, chaotic mountain of wood in the center of the forum. They want to burn him here, in the heart of the city. They want his spirit to rise up and consume the Senate House. In the houses of the conspirators, the mood is grim. They hear the reports from the forum. They hear the change in the wind. Brutus sits alone in his study, staring at a bust of his ancestor. "We did it for Rome," he whispers to himself. Why do they not understand? He does not see that Rome is not an idea to be debated. Rome is flesh and blood, and Caesar was its heart. Cassius paces the floor, checking his sword. "We should have killed Antony too," he mutters. "I told you the snake would bite, but it is too late for regrets." The die is cast again. Night falls over a city that is seething. There are no lights in the windows tonight. Oh, only the glow of watchfires. The dogs of war are straining at their leashes. In the Domus Publica, the body of Caesar is prepared. He is washed, anointed with rare oils, and dressed in his purple robe. They place him on an ivory couch, draped with gold and purple. His wounds are hidden, but not forgotten. Calpurnia sits beside him, her tears exhausted. She watches the flicker of the lamps, waiting for the dawn of the funeral, the dawn of the reckoning. The air is thick with the scent of lilies and impending violence. The gods are watching, holding their breath, for tomorrow Rome will burn. The funeral procession moves like a dark river through the streets of Rome. Mournful flutes play a melody that sounds like weeping turned into music. Actors walk ahead, wearing the wax masks of Caesar's ancestors. They represent the great line of the Julii, kings, consuls, gods. But today, the faces of the dead seem to look down with sorrow. Behind them comes the ivory couch, carried by magistrates. On it lies the body one, hidden beneath cloths of purple and gold. The crowd presses in, a sea of tear-stained faces. They do not cheer today. They wail. They beat their chests. The sound is a low rumble, vibrating through the stones of the Via Sacra. They arrive at the Forum, where the hastily built pyre waits. It is a mountain of broken chairs, tables, and spears. Mark Antony ascends the rostra, the speaker's platform. He stands alone, a solitary figure against the gray sky. He looks out at the thousands of Romans. His face grim and pale. He does not start with shouting. He starts with a whisper. Friends, Romans, countrymen. He speaks of Caesar's glory, of his battles, of his mercy. He reminds them of the tears Caesar shed for the poor. He reminds them of the wealth Caesar refused for himself. Was this ambition? Antony asks, his voice cracking with emotion. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. The irony drips from his words like acid, burning into the minds of the mob. He steps down from the platform, moving closer to the body. The crowd leans forward, holding its breath. Antony reaches out and grabs the hem of the purple robe covering the corpse. With a sudden, violent motion, he rips it away. He lifts the toga high for all to see. It is stiff with dried blood, tattered and torn by daggers. "Look!" Antony screams, pointing to a rent in the fabric. "Look where Cassius's dagger went through.
See what a rent the envious Casca made!
And here?
Here is where Brutus stabbed him.
Brutus,
Caesar's angel."
the crowd stares at the bloody garment, the symbol of their murdered father. They see the violence, the cruelty, the betrayal. A collective howl rises from the Forum R, a sound of pure animal rage. It is no longer a funeral. It is a call to war.
"Revenge!"
They scream. Burn the traitors? They rush towards the bier, ignoring the priests, ignoring the soldiers. They will not let him be taken to the campus, Marcius outside the walls. They will keep him here, in the heart of the city he built. Men throw their own cloaks onto the pyre to feed the flames. Soldiers throw their medals. Musicians throw their instruments. Women throw their jewelry, creating a treasure trove for the dead. Torches are applied to the dry wood. The fire catches instantly, roaring up towards the heavens. Smoke, thick and black, billows into the sky, blotting out the sun. The flames lick at the ivory couch, consuming the purple cloth. Caesar burns. He returns to the elements, ascending as smoke to join the gods. But down on the ground, the fire has jumped from the pyre to the spirits of men. The mob turns away from the fire, their eyes glowing with reflected light. They pick up burning brands from the funeral pile. They have their weapons now. "To the house of Brutus!" someone shouts.
"To the house of Cassius!"
The cry is taken up by thousands. They flood out of the Forum like a breaking dam. A tide of fire and fury sweeping through the streets. The conspirators, hiding in their homes, see the smoke rising. They hear the roar of the beast they have awakened. Panic sets in, cold and absolute. They realize now that they have not killed a tyrant. They have created a martyr, and his ghost is leading an army of fire against them. Antony watches from the rostra, the heat of the flames warming his face. He has unleashed the dogs of war. "No, let it work," he whispers to the smoke. "Mischief, thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt. The Republic is burning on that pyre alongside Caesar, and from the ashes an empire will rise. The funeral fire burns low you, but the city is ablaze with a different kind of heat. The mob has become a hydra, a beast with 1,000 heads and no reason. They roam the streets with torches, seeking blood to quench their thirst. It is a bad night to be a man of rank O, or a man of wrong name. Helvius Cinna, a poet, walks through the shadowed streets. He is not a conspirator. He is a friend of Caesar, a dreamer of verses. He had a dream last night that Caesar invited him to supper. He tried to refuse, but Caesar took him by the hand and led him into a dark pit. Now he walks nervously, trying to reach his home. He hears the roar of the crowd before he sees them. They emerge from the smoke, faces twisted with soot and hate. "Who are you?" they scream, surrounding him like wolves. "I am Cinna," he replies, his voice trembling. "Cinna?" The cry goes up. "Cinna, the conspirator!" "No," he pleads, raising his hands. "I am Cinna the poet. I write poems for Caesar." It does not matter. Logic has fled the city. "Tear him for his bad verses," someone shouts. A cruel joke in the face of death. They descend upon him. A storm of fists and clubs. The poet's voice is silenced. His verse is lost in the gutter. It is the definition of anarchy, when innocence is no shield. Meanwhile, the real conspirators are fleeing. Brutus and Cassius slip out of the city gates, disguised and terrified. They look back at the glow of Rome on the horizon. The city they wanted to save has rejected them. They are now exiles wandering into the darkness of history. They ride hard, the sound of hooves echoing the beating of their hearts. Behind them, Rome is a cauldron. The houses of Bellienus and others are burning. The fire reflects in the Tiber, turning the water into blood. Mark Antony sits in his house, listening to the reports. He does not smile, but he does not weep. He knows that chaos is a ladder, and he is climbing it. But he is not the only one climbing. A young man is riding towards Rome from Apollonia. Octavius, the boy named in the will. He is 18 years old, pale, sickly, and underestimated by everyone. But he carries the name of Caesar now, and with that name comes a destiny heavier than the world. The pieces are moving on the board. The old republic is dead, murdered on the Ides of March. The vacuum it left is being filled by ambition and steel. The night wears on, long and agonizing. The fires eventually die down, leaving scars of ash on the city. But the anger does not die. It simmers in the hearts of the legions. It whispers in the barracks. Civil war is not coming. It is already here. The ghosts of the dead are gathering. Caesar, Pompey, Crassus, and soon many more will join them. Sleep is impossible in Rome tonight. The air smells of charred wood and iron. The gods have turned their backs, and the wolves are howling at the moon. The fires of the funeral pyre have turned to cold gray ash. Rome wakes up to a new reality, a reality of uneasy truces. Mark Antony sits in the house of Pompey, drinking deep from a goblet of wine. He feels like the master of the board, the successor to the throne. But a shadow is lengthening from the east. Gaius Octavius has landed in Italy. He is a boy of 18, with the face of a girl and the heart of a wolf. He does not bring legions, not yet. He brings a name, Caesar. He adopts the name of his adoptive father, wearing it like armor. Veterans of the Gallic Wars flock to him, drawn by the magic of that word. They look at his frail body, and they see the ghost of their general. Antony laughs when he hears the news. The boy owes everything to his name. He sneers. But Cicero, the old fox, watches with interest. He sees a weapon he can use against Antony. I will praise the boy, Cicero thinks. I will distinguish him, and then I will discard him. A dangerous game, played by dangerous men. Rome becomes a city of whispers again. Alliances are formed in the dark and broken by the morning light. Brutus and Cassius are gathering armies in the east. The empire is splitting in two, but inside the city EU, the air is thick with political poison. Octavian enters Rome quietly, without fanfare. He walks the streets where his father's blood was spilled. He does not weep. He does not rage. He calculates. He meets with Antony, a meeting of the bull and the viper. Antony is loud, boisterous, condescending. Octavian is cold, polite, and unyielding. He demands his inheritance. He demands vengeance. Antony dismisses him, a fatal mistake, for the boy sees what Antony does not. The people do not want a new master. They want the old one back, and Octavian is the mirror image of the dead god. The pieces are set for the next act. Not a murder in the Senate, but a war on the fields of Philippi. The Ides of March was only the prologue. The true tragedy is about to unfold. The sun sets red over the Tiber, a portent of the blood to come. The eagles are circling, and the wolf is waiting, far from the noise of Rome, on a small island in the Reno River near Bononia. 3 armies stand watching each other from the riverbanks, silent and wary. In the center of the stream, a tent is pitched, visible to all but heard by none. 3 men sit around a rough wooden table. Mark Antony, his face flushed with wine and the wind. Lepidus, the wealthy patrician, anxious to keep his position. And Octavian, the young wolf, his eyes scanning a map of the world. They have met to divide the empire like a loaf of bread. The East belongs to Brutus and Cassius for now. Antony growls. We must take it back with iron and fire. But wars cost money. Octavian states calmly, his finger tracing the border of Italy. And we have enemies at our backs in Rome. The solution they reach is simple, brutal, and efficient. They will not just defeat their enemies, they will exterminate them. They pull out a scroll of parchment, blank and innocent. but it will soon be the heaviest document in history. They dip their quills in ink ore, but it might as well be blood. The proscriptions, they call it, a list of men declared outlaws, whose property can be seized, whose lives can be taken. Any man who kills a proscribed person receives a reward. Any man who hides one dies. It is a cold barter of lives. My uncle Lucius Caesar, Antony says, he has spoken against me. He writes the name down without a tremor in his hand. My brother Paulus, Lepidus adds, his voice shaking slightly. He voted to declare me a public enemy. The name is added. Then Antony looks at Octavian, a cruel smile playing on his lips. And what of your new father? What of Cicero, the man who praised you, the man who called you a god? Octavian pauses, the quill hovering over the parchment. He knows Cicero used him. He knows the old orator sees him only as a tool. But Cicero was also the voice of the Republic. Oh, a man of words, not swords. For 2 days, rumors say, Octavian resists. But on the 3rd day, the necessity of politics outweighs the debt of gratitude. He nods slowly, and the name Marcus Tullius Cicero is written in bold letters. The ink dries, sealing the fate of hundreds, 300 senators, 2,000 knights, the best blood of Rome, signed away in a tent on a river. The orders are sent out, riding fast on fresh horses. Terror returns to the eternal city, darker than before. It is not the chaotic rage of the mob this time. It is the cold, mechanical violence of the state. Soldiers march through the streets, reading the lists posted in the forum. Doors are kicked down in the middle of the night. Men are dragged from their beds, from their suppers, from their prayers. There are no trials. There are no appeals. There is only the sword. Servants betray masters for a share of the reward. Sons betray fathers to inherit their estates early. But there are also acts of quiet heroism. Wives hiding husbands in sewers and attics. Slaves dressing as their masters to die in their place. But the net is too tight. The hunters are too many. Cicero is at his villa in Formia, hoping to escape by sea. He hears the soldiers coming, the tramp of boots on the gravel. His slaves want to fight, to defend the old man. No, Cicero commands, weary and resigned. Put down the litter. Let me look at the face of my country one last time. He stretches his neck out of the litter, looking at the centurion. He does not plead. He does not beg. There is nothing proper about what you are doing, soldier. He says softly, but try to kill me properly. The sword falls. The voice of Rome is silenced forever. But Antony's revenge is not yet complete. He orders the head and the hands of Cicero to be brought to Rome. The hands that wrote the Philippics, the speeches against Antony. He nails them to the rostra in the Forum, the very place where Cicero spoke so eloquently for freedom. People walk past, averting their eyes in horror. The dead eyes of the orator stare blindly at the city he loved. A nail is driven through his tongue. A final, petty insult. It is a message to all of Rome. Speak against us, and this is your reward. The city falls into a deep, terrified silence. The Republic is not just dead. It is dismembered. Its champions are headless corpses rotting in the sun. Its laws are replaced by the whim of 3 men. The triumvirate rules supreme, but there is no trust between them. Only a shared hunger for power. Octavian watches Antony closely. He sees the older man's arrogance, his recklessness. He knows that this alliance is only a pause in the war, a breath before the plunge. But first, they must deal with the ghosts in the east. Brutus and Cassius have raised 19 legions. They call themselves the Liberators. They are waiting in Greece, ready to fight for the corpse of the Republic. Antony and Octavian gather their forces. They strip the temples of their gold to pay the troops. They leave a city of ghosts behind them. They march towards Brundisium, towards the ships, towards destiny. The harvest of heads is finished. The harvest of souls is about to begin. The gods look down on the marching columns. Mars polishes his shield. The Furies shriek in the wind. The final battle for the soul of Rome approaches. The plains of Philippi await, a vast canvas of dry grass and dust. Here, under the cold Macedonian sky, the fate of the world will be decided. 2 armies, like 2 great beasts, coil and stare at each other across the valley. On one side, the triumvirate, hungry, ruthless, and seeking vengeance. On the other, the liberators, proud, desperate, and haunted by the past. The air is thick with the smell of horse, sweat, and fear. Night falls before the battle, a night of uneasy dreams and sharp winds. Brutus sits in his tent, huddled under a heavy wool cloak. The lamp on his table flickers, though there is no draught in the heavy canvas room. He tries to read a book of philosophy to calm his racing mind, but the words swim on the page, meaningless ink on dead parchment. He feels a sudden chill, a drop in temperature that freezes the marrow. The shadows in the corner of the tent seem to thicken and move. They coalesce into a shape, a familiar, terrifying silhouette. It is Caesar, not the golden god of the Senate, but a pale, gray wraith with wounds that still bleed. Brutus stares, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Who art thou? He whispers, his voice trembling in the silence. Thy evil spirit. Brutus. The phantom replies, its voice like rustling dry leaves. I shall see thee at Philippi. And then he is gone, leaving Brutus alone with the beating of his own guilt. Was it a dream? Or does the spirit of the dictator truly walk these fields? The dawn breaks, blood red and unforgiving. The trumpets sound ew, shattering the morning silence.
Ta-ra-ra! Ta-ra-ra!
The earth shakes under the feet of 200,000 men. Octavian is ill, carried in a litter, absent from the front lines. But Antony is there, commanding the field, a master of war in his element. He strikes at Cassius's wing, breaking through the lines with savage force. It is a chaotic swirl of dust, blood, and shouting. Iron clashes against iron, a deafening symphony of death. Cassius retreats to a hill, watching his legions crumble below. His eyesight is poor, obscured by the smoke and the tears of defeat. He sees a group of horsemen approaching his position. Are they friends? Oh. Are they foes coming to finish him? He sends his best officer, Titinius, to investigate. He watches anxiously as Titinius is surrounded by the riders. He hears them shout. He sees them dismount and embrace. But in his despair, he misinterprets the scene. He thinks they are capturing him. "My best friend is taken?" Cassius cries out, his voice breaking. And I have lived to see it. He believes the day is lost. He believes the cause is dead. He calls his freedman, Pindarus, "Guide thou the sword." He commands, handing him the weapon, the very same dagger that pierced Caesar. Now waits for Cassius. He covers his eyes, unable to face his failure. The blade strikes home. He dies on his birthday, a tragic circle completed. But it was a mistake, a terrible, fatal mistake. Titinius was not captured. He was greeted by friends, bringing news of Brutus's victory on the other wing. They return to find their general dead, his blood soaking the dry earth. Brutus arrives too late. He looks down at the body of his brother-in-law, his partner in this great crime. The sun of Rome is set. He whispers, the tears streaming down his face. "O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty, yet thy spirit walks abroad and turns our swords in our own proper entrails." He weeps, but he cannot stop to mourn. The battle is not over. He must rally the troops. He must fight on alone. He orders the body to be hidden, lest it dishearten the soldiers. The first battle of Philippi ends in a stalemate of blood. One wing victorious, one wing destroyed. Night falls again, heavy with the smell of death and rot. The ravens gather, feasting on the flower of Roman youth. Brutus walks among his sleeping men, a ghost among the living. He feels the weight of the phantom pressing on him. He knows the end is coming. He can feel it in the air, brittle and cold. The Republic is a dying ember, and he is the last man blowing on the spark. Antony waits in his camp, drinking wine, satisfied. He knows that time is on his side. He knows that despair is a weapon sharper than any spear. 20 days pass, 20 days of waiting, 20 days of hunger. And then the second battle begins, the final clash. There is no strategy now, only desperation. Brutus's men charge wild, driven by fear and the need for an end. But they are met by a wall of veterans, an unbreakable shield wall. The lines break, the dream shatters. Brutus flees to the hills, a hunted animal with a few faithful friends. He sits under a rock, looking up at the indifferent stars. He quotes a line from a tragedy, his voice hollow. "O, wretched virtue, thou wert but a name, and yet I worshipped thee as real." He looks at his remaining friends, few and weary. He asks them one by one to help him die. They refuse, weeping, turning away in horror. Finally, Strato, a loyal servant, holds the sword. Brutus looks towards Rome one last time, across the sea and mountains. "Caesar, now be still," he whispers into the wind. "I killed not thee with half so good a will." He runs upon the blade. The last of the Romans is dead. The field belongs to the victors. Antony finds the body the next morning. He looks down at the man who killed his friend. He does not spit on him. He takes off his own purple cloak and covers the body. "This was the noblest Roman of them all," he says softly. "All the conspirators, save only he, did that they did in envy of great Caesar, only in a general honest thought and common good to all made one of them." Octavian watches, cold and impassive. He orders the head of Brutus to be sent to Rome, to be thrown at the feet of Caesar's statue. The war is over. The Republic is finished. The world now belongs to the triumvirate. But the world is not big enough for three masters. The shadow of the future looms. But for now, the dead can sleep, and the living must build a new world from the ashes. The dust settles over the fields of Philippi, and with it the dust of the Republic. Octavian stands alone at the summit of the world, no longer a boy, but an emperor. He will build a city of marble from a city of brick, and bring the Pax Romana to a weary world. But the echoes of the Ides of March will never truly fade, whispering forever in the halls of history. And now, our journey comes to an end. We leave the ghosts of Rome to their eternal slumber, and return to the safety of the present. Take a deep breath, letting the sights and sounds of the ancient world dissolve into mist. You have traveled far tonight, through time and tragedy. Now, it is time to rest your own weary head. Let the darkness of your room wrap around you, warm and protective. There are no conspiracies here, no daggers in the dark, only the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, and the promise of a peaceful sleep. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a sign in the scrolls below. I will be waiting here, in the shadows of time, for our next adventure. Close your eyes now, and let the river of dreams carry you away. Good night, travelers of time. Good night, and sleep well.